Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. My name is Josh Eckel. I'm the Executive Director at For All Tennessee, and thank you for joining us on one of our first live stream video events that we're doing. Obviously, you know me, Josh Eckel, the Executive Director. I want to introduce you real quick to our Chairman of the Board, Justin Cornett. What's going on, Justin?
Going, Josh?
It's a Sunday, chilling, man. It's a beautiful day outside, no complaints.
It is. It's a good day to sit outside and have some dinner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So real quick, the reason we're doing this video is because we wanted to kind of give everyone a breakdown on what happened with the hearing on HB 409 about 2 weeks ago. I'll let Justin get into the weeds on that. But before I do that, I just want to give you a very brief introduction on what For All is. So For All is a 501c4 political nonprofit. We were established to correct the imbalance between Tennesseans and their government. To that end, in this session, we've been working on issues like ballot access reform, criminal justice reform, protecting small business, and protecting private property. Today, we're going to be talking about our criminal justice reform focus area, specifically civil forfeiture. So with that said, I want to give the floor to our Chairman of the Board to kind of give you an introduction on what is civil forfeiture and how it's being used in Tennessee. So there you go. Take it away.
Thanks, Josh. So yeah, civil asset forfeiture is one of these things that in the state of Tennessee, we think there's a big problem with. So just some background on what it is. Criminal asset forfeiture is where you are a drug dealer and you get convicted of selling massive amounts. You're Pablo Escobar, okay, and you're convicted, and they confiscate your house and all your cars, and then they auction all that stuff off and put that money back into the community. Civil forfeiture is the exact same thing, except for the person never has to be charged with a crime. We think that there's a lot going on with this because no one's being charged with a crime. And there's been a lot of effort to reform civil forfeiture here in Tennessee over the last 5 or 6 years. We had HB 409, which is a reporting bill, and that's the bill that we're talking about today.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll pull up some quick numbers on that if you're okay with it.
Sure.
To talk a little bit more about it. So in Tennessee, and this I think is the numbers of the last 5 or 6 years, we've had about 50,000 civil forfeiture cases, over $150 million of cash seized from Tennesseans, over 6,000 vehicles. And, you know, the average size of the forfeiture, at least as of our last run in 2017, was about $2,200. What does that tell you about how civil forfeiture is being used, Justin?
It's being used a lot, and the people that are being affected by it probably aren't cartel members. So, civil forfeiture is one of those things that's in place to help fight the drug war and keep drugs off of our street. But if the average forfeiture is $2,200, it's tough to make the argument that you're really making a big dent.
Gotcha. Okay. So with that in mind, now we've kind of established what civil forfeiture is. Obviously, we had a hearing on HB 409 about 2 weeks ago. And I think that there was kind of a big moment this last week that kind of killed the bill. Correct. Could you give us an introduction on what HB 409 tried to do?
Yeah, again, HB 409 is a reporting bill, and all that means is they're passing legislation that says that the Department of Safety has to report information pertaining to these cases. So there were 28 items on the bill that we were asking them to report, I believe, and a lot of those were already in code and being reported. But there were a handful of big ones, and the big ones were how the money is spent, because it cannot go straight back into the budgets of the police departments that are confiscating the money, and how many criminal convictions are actually tied to civil forfeitures. So that was the big stuff that we were trying to get out of this bill.
Sorry, I'm muted. We're still learning this system. I said, so it sounds like this bill would give Tennesseans a lot of information on how civil forfeiture is being used in the state, right?
It would. It is a transparency bill, as Antonio Parkinson so eloquently stated in the committee hearing that we're going to be breaking down today. It's about letting the people of Tennessee know how these dollars are being confiscated, who they're being confiscated from, and how they are spent.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so with that said, I think we have a clip about from Lafferty's introduction of the bill. Is that where you want to start? Okay.
Yeah, let's. I think that's a good place to start. I think he does a really good job of setting this up and how easy this bill should have been.
Got it. Okay, well let's watch this introduction then from Lafferty.
You all have been told about, visited from friends, talked. I've visited with just about everybody, I think, about this bill. This is a reporting bill. That's it. This is a reporting bill. 90% of everything that's in that paper already exists. 5% or 10% is all that we're looking to get out of the department and onto the record. The reason for it, I've talked to you all. There's a lot of property that's being taken from citizens of this state. And we can't go, how, where, why, show us. You can't tell me how it happens. That's a problem for me. We're legislators. We are sworn to protect, and we don't have the ability to see how it is that all of this property is being taken from all these people.
Sounds like a good case.
Yeah, and it is just like he said. All we're asking for is to provide the public with information about this. It could be a big problem in Tennessee. It might not be a problem at all in Tennessee. But the fact of the matter is we don't know because they don't report the information.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think Representative Parkinson made a comment after this that we wanted to highlight as well regarding the transparency of it and why it's a very simple common sense reform. So let's just play that real quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this. So this is a transparency bill, right?
I suppose it could be classified that way. Yeah.
You may want to classify it that way.
Okay.
Right. This is a transparency bill, and what it does is it just creates more transparency, for us and our citizens. And I believe that all of our members up here on the dais are for transparency, without speaking for them. And so I appreciate you bringing the bill. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that.
Right? I wish he would have been right, but apparently not all the members were for transparency. So
Understood. Okay. So from what I understand in this hearing, there were kind of two representatives that came up to speak against the bill. It was a woman from the Department of Safety, kind of their direct lobbyist. And then there was Stroker, right. And then there was a woman that also came up and spoke for the Tennessee Association of Chiefs of Police. Maggie Duncan. Okay. Now they made some claims. What was your takeaway from their claims and what was your gut reaction?
Well, I mean, my initial reaction was, oh, well, maybe that's the case. So then I went and asked some questions to some people that would know better than I would. And it seems that those claims are questionable at the very least.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So they came in and made some claims about why the bill couldn't pass in its current form, and the logic they used was a little bit shaky, a little bit questionable. Yeah. Okay. All right. So from what I understand, we've got some claims to break down then, right? On this.
Let's do that. Can we see the claims?
Yeah. So we want to start with, I guess, on this one, we'll start with the first claim, which I think was from Stroker, and that was that the cost to procure the data to be transparent was too high.
Right. So this bill had a $33,000 fiscal note, meaning they expected the new cost for reporting this information to cost $33,000. Ms. Stroker's claim was that it would cost more in the $1 million to $2 million a year a department.
Okay, got it. All right. So assuming I can get this clip to load, we'll play it.
Gotta love technology, Josh. This is why I let you handle the tech.
Yeah. So I've got the clip here. Walk us through the claim. So she said that it was going to cost multiple millions of dollars to facilitate this.
The claim was that they would have to have a new computer system, essentially a new portal that everybody could enter the information into. Tennessee does not have a unified court system, meaning that all the courts don't necessarily talk to each other. But whether or not that's preventative to collecting this information is a different question.
Got it. Okay, so I do finally have the clip. It did work. So let's play that real quick, and we'll respond to it.
Sure.
And to add on that, you also have to add in every single law enforcement agency in the state would also have to have access to it, because we have to we gather and report and track information for every seizing law enforcement agency, which is most all of them. And then you would also have to have all the courts and all of them talking along with our current software that we use for our current collection database. And so, yes, if that existed, that would be great, and we could easily report this information, but it's just not, it doesn't exist for that to happen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so she went into kind of a commentary there on the needed portal and all the expense surrounding that portal. And I think at one point earlier in that claim or a little bit later, she had alluded to a couple $1 million on fiscal note, right?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. She's essentially, what she's claiming is because the court systems do not talk to each other, that it's impossible to track all this information through the Department of Safety without creating a new computer program that all these different systems can use.
Got it. Okay. So, I guess my big question is, how, why is that wrong? Have you talked to anybody in the field, anybody that works in this space that could maybe refute that or address that claim?
Well, I mean, aside from the idea that on its face, $35,000 could pay an employee at the Department of State to call 95 counties in Tennessee and collect this information. Yes, I have spoken to a handful of different lawyers, some court clerks, a couple of judges, and asked them, about the veracity of her claims. And to single out one, I had an informal conversation with T. Scott Jones, who is a really prominent lawyer out of East Tennessee, nationally recognized, who said, no, this could absolutely be done. It would be cumbersome, but it could absolutely be done. They could collect this information.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's the first claim. It's a little expensive, and maybe a heavy lift for them, but it can be done. Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Understood. So the next claim I think we had noted was from Maggie. Her name was Maggie. Is that right?
Duncan. Maggie Duncan.
Okay. And so this is Duncan. When she was asked, what is a reasonable degree of reform? What would you guys like us to do? Her response was, effectively, this is a non-issue, right? And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that before I play the clip, but I do have.
No, go ahead and play the clip.
Okay, let's do that.
And excuse the hyperbole, but civil asset forfeiture can be fairly described as a racket to some. How would you suggest that we collect the necessary data to properly reform the system?
Well, we've been working on reforming the system for the last 5 years. And I think that we have very few problems to date. And that would be a question that would be probably more adequately answered by the Department of Safety, because they collect a lot of that data and create a report annually now. So they would be better able to answer what that information is that they're turning over in those annual reports, because I'm pretty sure they're several hundred pages long. This would only make it even longer.
Ripson and Clemens, you recognize?
Yeah, so log reports is a good reason to not be transparent with the taxpayers of Tennessee, apparently. Maggie Duncan, actually, when she first sat down, she expressed the concern that the Police Chiefs Association had. And she said she was going to keep it short and sweet, and it took about 4 seconds for her to explain it. The reason that they were opposed to the bill is because they didn't want to ask questions to the people that were affected by this, because it could endanger police lives by keeping them on the side of the interstate longer.
Gotcha.
They just didn't want to ask questions.
Understood. Well, and this is kind of the thing that you hear often. There's typically an excuse. If they don't want to be transparent, they're going to find most any reason to avoid it. I feel like when we heard Stricker come back, there was a similar comment from her.
She got the same question.
Right. So she got the same question. I think that's the next clip we have. And she was asked, hey, we just asked the Chief of Police Association the same question. They deferred to you. What's your response? So I'll play that clip real quick as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good. Representative Clemens?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you heard my question to Ms. Duncan. They're merely carrying out and working within a system that exists, no fault of their own. They have their policies, they have the system, they're operating within it. We have the opportunity to reform that system. And I think, as was pointed out, it's been discussed for years, probably ever since I've been up here, past 7 years, more or less. So what is the department's solution to address the concerns that have been raised year after year on this issue?
Yes, sir. And thank you, Chair. Sorry.
Go ahead.
And Mrs. Duncan is right. Ever since I've been here, we did the long, I think 2017, 2018, 9-hour in-depth review of the entire forfeiture process, and basically rewrote that entire system because there were problems. There were things that agencies were doing incorrectly, things that we were not doing correctly, and we admitted that there were problems, and we went through and we fixed a lot of those problems, and we spent a lot of time working through that for years with all interested stakeholders, and we have not been brought any other major problems since that has happened. That doesn't mean they're not out there. I know for a fact that we have a very rigorous review system whenever it comes to these cases, at least once a month. And I don't even deal with the forfeiture cases. I hear of a case where something was sent back to a seizing agency because they did not follow what the law requires. And that's what our job is with it, that y'all have tasked us with within this seizing process, is that it comes to us to review. And if that seizing agency didn't do what you all have said we need to do to be able to seize and forfeit property, then it goes back and it is returned to that owner. Despite if that agency had good intentions, or we're stopping something that was a criminal activity, we take it very seriously. And we believe that we have, put a really good process in place where those bad actors or those bad situations don't happen anymore because of the oversight that the department has on all of these seizures.
Okay.
If only that were true.
Yeah, break it down for us, Justin. Break it down.
I mean, the reality is civil forfeiture requires a level of suspicion known as preponderance of evidence. That means that a police officer needs to be 51% certain that the property in question is going to be part of some illegal activity. So if you're driving down the street and you've got a couple $1,000s in cash in your car, all they have to do is think there's a chance that you're going to go and use that to buy drugs, and they can take it. Now, Department of Safety and Ms. Stroker and Ms. Duncan may not see that as a problem, but that's a real problem. People use cash for things. Craigslist is a thing. People buy cars in cash. People go and buy things for their business in cash. Churches move money from the church to the bank in cash. And these are all situations in which money has been confiscated from people through civil forfeiture. So the idea that just because they're following all the rules that they've set in place over the last 5 years means that there's no problem with civil asset forfeiture is preposterous. Again, the average seizure is around $2,200. If you're trying to bring down cartels, that number should be $25,000 at an average, at a minimum, because there are lots of times that they get seizures that are over $1 million. So
Right.
to offset that, we're talking a lot of really small seizures and a lot of people that are not drug dealers, that are not gangbangers, that are getting stuff taken from them.
Right. And the data from the state even says that with the average forfeiture being around 2,200, it's very clear that these are not massive cartel level seizures. These are
Right.
small cars, these are, it's like the woman, we've spoke about this many times, a woman in Sevier County 10 years ago who had her inheritance seized. I mean, it's that kind of
Right.
story of Tennesseans
Right.
that are getting caught up in this process.
I mean, if we're seizing a $2,200 car because somebody thinks that they might be using it to buy drugs or sell drugs or something like that, that $2,200 car is owned by somebody that is really needs to be able to get back and forth to work in order to pay their rent so that they're not on the public dole in some way. We're inhibiting the ability of people that are in the most need in our society, in our state, from being able to get out of whatever situation they are in.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well said. Well said, Justin. Now, I think Representative Griffey made this kind of pitch also, about how there's a major amount of reform needed. So I've got that clip queued. I don't know if you want to comment on it briefly.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, we've tried a lot of different things on civil asset forfeiture over the last 5 or 6 years, as the committee rightly notes. We've tried to get a criminal conviction. We've tried to change the evidentiary requirement to a higher threshold and make it, meaning police would have to be even more certain before they engage in this. We've tried to get thresholds. You can't take anything less than this dollar amount. We've tried all kinds of different stuff to try to address this and put it in, make it a fair system for people that are negatively impacted by it. And one of the proposals that we're going to be looking at for next year is bringing these cases into a court of public record. Currently, these cases are overseen by an administrative law judge, which is often a Department of Safety employee or a police chief or something like that. And that's the person that's administering over these hearings, meaning you get your stuff taken by a police agency. You have to go to a police agency, not a courtroom, to try to get your stuff back. And the police agency gets to oversee and decide whether or not you get your stuff back. These are problems. And we have to figure out some way to properly track and address these situations so that the defendants, the regular folks that get their property taken, have some sort of fair process in order to get their stuff back.
Gotcha. So with that said, let's hear Griffey's comments.
Yes.
To that end, let's do it.
Great comments.
My final comment. Look, I'm sympathetic to Department of Safety. I want, we certainly want them to have the resources and be able to do what they need to do to carry out the mission and the statutes that we ask them to do. At the same time, I think it's critical anytime the state government is taking assets of the citizens, we need full transparency. We need this data, and if it's a budget item that needs to be funded, if it's funded from some of the funds from the actual asset forfeitures, if that's a way to solve this issue, I would be in favor of that. If the way to solve this issue is to require these civil asset forfeiture cases, which seem to cause so much consternation with a number of our constituents throughout the state, that we go through General Sessions Court, I would be in favor of that. This issue, I think the General Assembly ought to put this issue to bed one way or another, and
address it. Was his kind of last comment there.
And he's entirely right. There are lots of groups in this state that have lobbied the legislature to get meaningful civil asset forfeiture reform that gives the benefit of the doubt, innocent until proven guilty, kind of environment to these cases, which does not exist currently. And we have to find a way to put this to bed. You know.
Well said. Well said. Well, and Lafferty feels the same way. In spite of what happened to his bill, he kind of, I think, recapped the whole hearing pretty well.
I agree.
I think that's one of the final clips we have, but I'd like to play that unless you have some commentary to.
There are some folks out there that would argue that his commentary is not firm enough. But if you've been a passive watcher of the legislature this year, you understand that there's a hierarchy. And if you're not the chair of the committee, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. And that's the place that Mr. Lafferty finds himself in as he tries to appeal to the committee to do the right thing on this bill.
Gotcha. Well, let's play the clip.
Asked for a solution. Department of Safety just stood here and said not possible. 2019, we had summer study. Since 2019, not possible. Department of Safety has not been to my office to provide any ideas of any solutions on this matter. I don't pretend to understand how everything works between the multiple court systems, the jurisdictions, Department of Safety, all the other departments involved. It's too big. Nobody can wrap their head around all of it. But all that I've gotten from Department of Safety is can't do it. I would love to hear solutions from people that know the inner workings, and I haven't been through that. It was a big question. May I continue?
Absolutely.
So a couple of numbers real quick. 2018, approximately $11 million was forfeited through civil forfeiture. If you start breaking those numbers down, which IJ has done for me, thank you, IJ, it's about $750 a pop that you're talking on average there. We're not taking down drug kingpins with this. We're taking people's automobiles that need to get back and forth to work. We're taking money to buy groceries for their families. Now, do I have the evidence to back that up? Nope. Can't be done. That's what I keep hearing. Can't be found out. But when you dig into the numbers, it looks messy. It doesn't look clean. And taking property from people without due process crawls all over me. It just, anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional about this part here.
I mean, well said.
Rightfully so. We could be getting emotional. We need legislators that would get emotional over the idea of due process not being involved in something that has taken hundreds of millions of dollars from citizens of our state over the last 10 years.
Right.
I mean,
and Lafferty's a real person. That's what I get from this. He really does care. He's a real person. He's genuine, and he wants to fix a problem, and he's working his best to do it.
100% accurate. He really is. So what happened with this during this committee hearing, which we'll attach the full video of, it's like 50 minutes long. So, but it's a worthwhile watch. You learn a lot watching these committee hearings. At any rate, in this committee hearing, Ms. Stroker singled out lines 23, 24, and 25 of this bill as things that they could not do. And those three things would have reported the total number of cases that resulted in a criminal conviction, total number of civil forfeitures tied to a criminal conviction, the total amount of currency, including the mean and median that's taken year over year, and the total amount of property and the value of said property, including the mean and median over a year. So Justin Lafferty didn't argue with her. He went and amended the bill, and he brought the bill back with those amendments. They went into a second subcommittee hearing, and Ms. Stroker then decided that there was a problem with collecting demographic data on these individuals, that the start date couldn't be met, the report date couldn't be met, and there was how the money was spent could not be tracked, which is a big thing because, again, this money cannot be used if a police department confiscates $1 million through civil asset forfeiture in a year, and they cannot spend that $1 million in their actual budget. It has to go to a certain set of items. And there have been lots of reports in Tennessee and outside of Tennessee of incredible misuse of these funds. These funds have been used to buy everything from decommissioned military equipment to margarita machines. So it's a true story. But in Tennessee, we don't know how it's spent, and we need to know how it's spent.
Gotcha.
So after
those items were requested, and then they were amended into the bill.
Yep.
Okay.
In the first committee hearing, it was those 3 lines that I mentioned first, and that bill, he amended the bill, he brought it back, they added the amendment to the bill, they rolled the bill a second time because Ms. Stroker had new issues that needed to be taken out of the bill. So he went back and he amended the bill again to suit all of her needs. And then we had our final committee hearing on it, which I think.
And that was what, 3-4 days ago? That was recent?
It was the 13th.
Okay, so about 5 days ago. Why don't we just play the clip? I think it speaks for itself. How about that?
I think it does.
After all the requests, all the amendments, and Lafferty being a very good, playing
Trying
along.
to work with him.
Yep.
Playing along, doing what he's supposed to do or supposedly supposed to do, because he couldn't get the bill through because Ms. Stroker had sowed enough seed of doubt in the committee that it wouldn't have passed as it was written.
So here's the final hearing on the bill. This is what happened.
Brings us to item 3 by House Bill 409 by Representative Lafferty. And he has joined us. Thank you, sir. And you've got a motion. And I'm sorry, Bill dies for lack of a second.
Very abrupt end.
All that work. And, again, it's probably not the end of the world because the bill had been gutted. I mean, almost everything that was of value in that bill had been amended out to, appease the Department of Safety and the committee. But even after all that, he walks back into the committee. They've seen him 4 or 5 times on this bill at this point. They all know what this bill is. And he gets the motion and he can't get a second. And for that reason, the bill dies.
Understood. Well, it's a sad end, but this is, if you've been working in the legislature, working on passing law, anyone that's done it for a while realizes that it's never a one-year game, right? I mean, you're not, it's years of building coalitions. It's years of building education. There's some dirty stuff that goes into it. This is not the end of the fight for transparent civil forfeiture by any means.
Not at all.
Right?
Not at all. And we are already collecting resources. Again, I've talked to a handful of lawyers, a couple of judges, a couple of court clerks, people that are familiar with how the system works in Tennessee. And I'm trying to get them lined up and ready to testify on the Hill next year. We're working on building coalitions with criminal justice organizations. We'll come back at them with a full court press next year, and we'll get this done next year.
Awesome. Yeah, and this isn't the only thing that 4All is working on. We've got several items on civil forfeiture that are still, I think 1 or 2 are still in the running. You want to give kind of the listeners a summary on what other items we're working on?
We do have 2 bills that we think will get done. So currently, if you have property seized from you through civil forfeiture and you would like to try to get your property back, the very first thing you have to do is pay $350 out of your pocket. Again, if our average seizure is $2,200 and we get seizures that are in the $1 million range, and that means that a lot of seizures might be $500, $1,000, and you got to pay $350 to try to get that back. So a lot of people don't even bother doing it. It's easy. It's easy for the seizing department to keep that money because it's not worth the fight from the individual. So we currently have a bill that would get rid of that $350 bond, because again, if you're innocent until proven guilty, why do you have to pay $350 to prove that you're innocent until proven guilty? It doesn't work like that in any other aspect of our legal system, and it shouldn't work like that in this aspect. That bill has gotten through both of its House and Senate subcommittees and is waiting on Finance, Ways and Means. It's got a $384,000 fiscal note attached to it. And we tried to get that attached to the governor's budget for next year, but we were unable to get it attached to the budget for next year. So what's next is there's $18.5 million that's left over in the budget for next year. And every bill out there that has a fiscal note that's not a part of the governor's budget is now competing for that $18.5 million. It makes it less likely that it will get through, but we still think that this one will get through. The governor's office has expressed support for this particular piece. So hopefully we'll be able to get that one through. And then we do have another one that addresses attorney's fees. So current law provides that if you pay your bond, your $350 bond to go and fight for your property, that the seizing agency, the agency that confiscated the property or seized the property in the first place, is responsible for reimbursing attorney's fees for that individual up to $3,000. $3,000, if you have any experience putting lawyers on retainer, will probably get you about 6 months worth of work. Some of these cases go way longer than 6 months. So you have to question whether or not there's an incentive for law enforcement to simply wait the person out, stall long enough to where the person has passed their $3,000 allotment. And they can no longer afford to dispute the case. So we have a bill now that would raise that cap up to $10,000, which might get you a couple of years worth of lawyers' attention, and hopefully that would be enough to, cover any concerned legal costs for a person that's innocent of a crime trying to get their stuff back.
Gotcha. And for the list, oh, sorry, continue.
I was going to say also it has the opposite effect. If a agency seizes your property and they realize that they're going to have to pay out up to $10,000 for your legal expenses, the process is likely to go a lot faster, simply because they don't want to pay out any more than they have to. So we're hoping that that's one of the effects that we'll see out of this bill.
Gotcha. And for our listeners who are curious, if you want to look them up, the bond bill that Cornette was referring to is HB 59, SB 260. The attorney's fees bill is HB 1254 and SB 1361. And, we can't thank Representative Rusty Grills and Representative Jerry Sexton for bringing these more than we already have. I mean, these two people have been really, they've been pivotal to the fight for civil forfeiture reform. So
right.
It's great that they brought
And
this bill. So you can look those up.
Mike Bell.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Is Mike Bell a Senate sponsor on both of those?
Yeah, Mike Bell, Senate sponsor for attorney's fees, and then obviously Frank Nicely, who's probably my favorite senator. Yeah, absolutely.
He's a lot of people's favorite senator.
For good reason.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about those bills, feel free to look them up. Those are the other items we're working on civil forfeiture reform this year. We are likely next year going to be coming back and bringing back the reporting bill, bringing back a lot of these reforms that have gotten killed this year. So it's not the end of the fight by any means. Cornette, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on the reform side before I kind of give people the pitch on how to get involved. But
just one thing, but goes right along with what you were going to say there. We are trying to build coalitions around all of our issues, and civil asset forfeiture specifically in this case. So if you've had a case where you've had property seized from you wrongly, we know about it and highlight it. If you have a law practice and you are aware of how these things work, we want to know about it and we want to highlight it. If you've got connections with people in your community or the representatives in your area, let us know, because we would like to have your help in helping us get good legislative items done.
Yeah, and you can share that information with us directly at info@4ltn.org, or you can go to our website and go to the More tab, and you'll see a Contact Us page. You can submit it there as well. We're going to, as we do every year, we're going to be building case studies and doing our best to show Tennesseans how this impacts real people. And so if you want to step up and help us with that, it would be greatly appreciated. Absolutely.
Yep.
To close us out, so I think I mentioned this earlier, but we're live streaming this on YouTube. We're doing that because this is a new process for us. So we want to get our kinks worked out. This is going to be premiered after it's live on Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, know that this is a recording, but you can check out the live streams there on YouTube. Just look us up at 4LTN on YouTube. If you want to get involved, we'd love to have you as a volunteer. You can go to our website at 4ltn.org. You can sign up to be a volunteer. Just scroll about halfway down the page and click the Join Us button. And if you want to become a member, we'd love to have you as part of the team. We're a little bit different than other organizations. I like to call us a democratized 501c4. And what that means is we're a bottom-up organization. So our volunteers, our members drive our policy. So every year our members we engage our members directly for a vote, and they're the ones that set our legislative agenda. No one member is weighed differently than the other. So if you give $10,000, you still are involved in the same way that somebody that gives $10 would. You can sign up and learn more about what membership entails by going to 4all.org /4ltn.org/membership. And you'll set the legislative agenda. You'll be involved in driving our strategy. We're basically using you to crowdsource our focus areas. That's $60 a year. You could set up recurring membership there, 4ltn.org/membership. And again, sign up to be a volunteer. We'll be reaching out to you as soon as you submit that. We've got a team of people ready to reach out and get you engaged. We'd love to have you as part of the team. That's all I've got, though, Cornette. I don't know if you have anything you want to add before we close.
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you for having me doing this. This is great.
Keep hustling, man. Thanks to you. Thank you very much for showing up. And we will try to be doing this once a month, live streamed on YouTube. So check us out. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks.